Hey guys, welcome back to my channel for another independent publisher review, or I guess independent author review is the accurate term that I'm going to use here. Today I'm going to be reviewing All Hail the Carrion King by Thomas Godfrey. This book was actually sent to me by the author like last week or so, really close to the end of August. And he told me he was going to release it in mid-September, but he actually did release it a little early, so it's actually available now. I have links for it below for the Amazon link, as well as the Amazon Canada link since he is based out of Canada. And then I will have the Goodreads linked down as well, so you guys can check out the review that I posted there. I really enjoyed this book. I'm going to start off by saying that I enjoyed the book. Of course, I'll go into details, but it's easy to tell when I enjoy the book versus when I'm like, we gotta talk about these things that were like, no. So I've actually been on like a good streak recently with these books that have been coming my way, and it's been super enjoyable to read slightly different genres to what I'm used to and different voices, and also not just be bombarded by what traditional publishing, not that I have anything against traditional publishing, but I think you do get a little bit more personality sometimes when you're in control of your own work to that full extent, and especially when you're just starting out, and we got all these new authors coming in, so this is super exciting. Thank you again for sending me your book, Thomas. You already know what I thought about it because I responded to you, and I'm actually re-recording this since you gave me a little more update on your information, so we're just gonna re-record it. We're just gonna do that. Alright, so let me get you guys started off with the blurb. I'm gonna read it off of my computer screen and just throw the cover up. All hail the Carrion King. The words rolled off the lips of the pallid jester that washed up on the shores of Brookshire on that fateful summer evening. A jester that to all appeared dead, but nonetheless got up and made his way into town. A town on the eastern fringe of the kingdom, ruled by the enigmatic and omnipotent tyrant known only as the Carrion King. In the tavern of Brookshire, the jester meets another young jester called Isaac, who aspires to perform on the stages of the West. The jester offers him the opportunity to travel with him into the very court of the Carrion King and to perform there, which is every jester's wildest dream. However, there is a quiet war that rages for the very soul of mortality, a war in which the jester is an ageless veteran, a war fought on stages with songs and jokes and stories as weapons. The Carrion King was defied once before, and it is fated that he will be again. Isaac could end this war if he refutes the West and its foul master, but the call of the Carrion King is strong, and many a greater man than he has fallen to its temptations over the ages. Now you guys have the description of the book that I received before I read it. Honestly, I had definitely fantastical visions in my mind of what you would expect from a jester in a court and a king, and even knowing the word carrion has that sort of, you know, connection to death and everything, and I was not ready for the total imagery that was about to come. So let's start with the cover, because I think that's probably the softest introduction we're going to get. If you observe here, the cover itself is pretty dark, but it's also pretty simple, and it kind of feels comical in the sense of illustrated graphically, but not like funny comical. So I've myself done a few covers for like underground independent magazines, so I've seen this a lot. And it's kind of the feeling that it was giving off, especially just the proportions. It seemed like it was more an 8.5 by 11 size. I do believe there has been resizing since. As the cover is, as I have received it, I was thinking more of an independent magazine, graphic novel sort of feel, and I think the illustration style used here also kind of leans in that direction, which is not bad at all. There is definitely multiple ways he could have polished it more. This isn't the author's art. He did have an artist do the work, but this works fine with the story. Yes, you could polish it and do a bunch of different things, but once we get into the story, I think this kind of gritty, sort of imposing Carrion King figure here is going to make more and more sense. Please ignore the tickety-tacks and the rumblies around. The puppies are awake. Okay, apparently the puppy wants to be in my lap and she's breathing heavily because she does. So we're gonna have that in the background. I'm sorry. You're moving everything. Alright, we are readjusted. So the story, yes. I think early on you can get a pretty good sense of the story, not just from the description, which does it tells you exactly what's going to happen with the chain of events, but the real flavor is in the prose. The author did a fantastic job with his descriptors, albeit sometimes I think they might have been a bit overused. However, because of the graphic nature of describing these cities that he's visiting and just the gruesome state that the world is in, the descriptors were very, very well done. Like, it was gruesome without being graphic and like disgusting. I mean, some people might find it disgusting. It's definitely not for everybody, so disclaimer. If you're not into, you could probably lean into gore. It's not quite a horror, but it's definitely, you know, like semi-dead-ish things, rotting things, blind, you know, people whose eyes have been ripped out and tongues have been cut off. So those kind of things. If that makes you uncomfortable, this may not be the book for you, but if you're open to kind of viewing it as part of this world, I think you're really gonna enjoy the tale that's been woven throughout this. So essentially, without trying to give too much away, the Jester, the last Jester of the West as he is known, is on a journey to take this young Jester Isaac to the west, and on their way they visit a few key cities and locations, and each time there's another element of decomposition, of, you know, just the world is rotting under the Carrion King's reign, and people are not really people anymore. They're these gray bodies, like mindless drones, blind knights. And it's really great. You're totally immersed in this, and you're seeing it through Isaac's eyes as a fresh viewer, whereas the Jester has more experience in it. You kind of get the feeling he's done it before. I think as the reader, you can tell where this story is going, but it's still very, very enjoyable, which I think in this case, you know, it's not the journey, it's the destination. In this case, it's really the journey that you're going on is, like, I thought I was really involved in it, and I didn't really put this book down, even though when I got it, the version wasn't set for Kindle. It was just a PDF, and it was that 8.5 by 11 size. So reading it on my, you know, regular size Kindle, it was pretty difficult because the text was smaller, but I barreled through it because I was just very intrigued with what was the next element that was going to be revealed to us. So it does have a little bit of a mystery in it as well. And as far as the descriptors go, I definitely would love to see this in a visual media as well. So graphic novel would have been a great format. I think even better would be animation. So I was really picturing kind of like the Netflix animations that they've got going on, like Castlevania and Blood of Zeus. That animation style, especially with their profession in moderate to severe gore and beautifully crafted action scenes. The action scenes in here, puppies! The action scenes in here were very, very descriptive, which I know for some people kind of puts them off because it's like, okay, you're giving me every movement. After a few, I did start to feel like they dragged on a lot because it was the crowd, or rather not the crowd, but the group of people fighting was getting bigger, so it took longer to get through the fight because he was individually taking out or confronting every individual. So it did kind of get a little monotonous and dragged on. That's why it really would exceed in a visual format like a Netflix animation. Just saying. I'm already like, I will petition for that if you so desire. I will do that. Characters too were super unique. We have the Jester, the younger Jester Isaac. They meet several key characters who the Jester's familiar with on the way that are... again, I don't want to like spoil who they are, but let's just say they're variations of angels, but not angels as we know them. And definitely more like arcane creatures with pretty good personalities. So, and I don't mean like pretty good funny haha, but like every character fits in this gruesome world very well, and each one is very interesting to learn about, especially their backstories and how they became who they are or why they fit into a certain role was very interesting. Piggybacking on that, with the main characters being jesters, you can expect some comedy in here, and most of it, I guess you could kind of say, is like a dark humor, but satirical. A lot, you could tell where there's a lot of even commentary on today's world, but part of being the Jester and being successful at it for Isaac and the Jester himself is being able to joke about the Carrion King without necessarily having it said so directly that the followers of the Carrion King get insulted and come and tear your tongue out. It's a thing. It happens. So don't do that. So there's a lot of good wordplay. Again, and this falls into the writer's craft. I think he used his words very effectively when making these jokes, which I think humor is actually one of the hardest things to write, especially if it's a satire or sort of like a subtle humor. And I think he did that really well. So overall, it was very, very enjoyable. The world building, as I mentioned, they go to all these different locations. You get something familiar, like sort of like a Coliseum area, and then like a super, like a New York kind of city, but they fit in this world, and then they're both in the West, so it's, you know, things are definitely different from what we know, but familiar enough where we can kind of see where I guess the commentary falls into both that location and this location. And like I said, his descriptors were very well done, so it was very easy to follow along and learn about these new places. It's a little outside my preferred genre. A lot of the books on my shelves that I prefer for my bookshelf award are kind of falling into a fantasy that I can read and kind of makes me feel happy at the end, whereas this one had a twist, which granted, it wasn't just the twist that like threw me off, which it was really well done, and it was actually perfect for the story, but it was still got me off guard, and it okay, so that happened. But in general, this sort of like fantasy dystopia dark humor thing isn't quite my cup of tea, so like I really super enjoyed it. If I had a physical copy in my hand, I would definitely put it on my shelves. And you'll notice on my reviews, I gave this book 5 stars because I think even though it's outside my genre, I fully enjoyed all of the components that make this a good story. And I'm not going to knock it down just because it's not something I usually read, even though it's not something I usually read, but I did enjoy it. Like, I enjoyed it thoroughly. I just don't know if it's quite gonna fit on my shelves with like all my Disney stuff. Like, it's not quite me. It's definitely, I don't know. I might change my mind. I might just go on a splurge, but in any case, I really enjoy this and I highly recommend it. I was actually talking about it with some coworkers today, and because they're into that sort of like satirical dark humor, kind of like dark fantasy kind of things. So yeah, like check it out. It's pretty quick. So if it's formatted any smaller, I can't see it going too far over 200 pages. The craft was great. If you're really picky, you might catch on some of the repetition and the overuse of descriptors, but overall I think it was really well done. So check out All Hail the Carrion King. I have his links below, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video. And if you've written a book that you would like me to review, or you have another book that you would recommend, let me know. Send me a message. All my links are also below in the description. I do have one, maybe two read-alongs coming up. One's for a very well-known independent published or self-published book that I'm not 100% sure if I'll do a read-along or just a review, but I think a read-along might be interesting. And then I'm going to read along Go the Distance, the Hercules Twisted Tale, because I earned it, and I'm gonna read it, and we're gonna read it together. So look forward to those videos, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks again for watching.